Hello, this is Super A64 because my opinion is just that interesting. Well, it happened again. Actually, today it happened again, where I'm discussing different scientific principles with people because I'm so educated and intelligent. I'm discussing scientific things with people on Facebook, and I bring up evolution like I do because, you know, I study evolutionary biology. And some guy throws out the old, what people call a prat, a point refuted 1,000 times. He brings up the whole, oh, you mean the theory of evolution? It's just a theory. At this point in my life, with everything in the public arena of knowledge about evolution and everything, if somebody uses that point refuted 1,000 times, that it's just a theory, it's hard for me to just accept them as being ignorant. I honestly just think they're lying. And I backed out of the conversation at that point because once you're that ignorant when it comes to science, I can't discuss things with you. I can't argue with you. All I can do is educate you. And these people don't want to learn. That's why they don't understand what a theory is. So this video is not going to be about defending evolution, okay? Because whether or not you like it, evolution is a fact. Change in populations over time is a fact. I know certain people, philosophers and religious people, will get angry when I say that, saying like, oh, you put evolution on a pedestal that it can't be challenged. No, the methods of evolution can completely be challenged, and we will overturn them and find better ways of looking at them. Look at Evo Devo over the past couple decades. But the fact that organisms have changed over time, at this point, there's no point in denying it. Now it's just the process by which it happened. Like I said, this is not going to be about defending evolution. This is just going to be explaining the absurdity of this idea that somehow the field of evolution can be thrown under the bus and completely forgotten just because it's called a theory. I've said it before on this channel, and in my real life too, and I'm so sick and tired of explaining it. But in science, a theory is not just an idea somebody pulls out of their ass, or it's not just a hypothesis or an assumption. Here we go again. In science, a theory is a body of knowledge. It is a field of study. It collects facts and laws, information. And the theory is supported on several things, one of them being natural selection, which is when environmental pressures and sexual selection alter a population over time because they have naturally selected for organisms for different traits, whether it be their color, their strength, their speed, the just antler size, things like that, where over time those mutations, those changes will add up and eventually lead to things like speciation, which is where so many genetic changes on a cellular level have built up to the point where that organism is no longer the organism it used to be. It's gotten to a point where this new emerged species can't even copulate with the species that it descended from. Camera changing every time I try to turn it off. It kind of like moves a little bit. Another fact that supports the theory of evolution is the concept of gene flow, which is, in population genetics, it's also known as gene migration. It's the transfer of alleles or genes from one population to another. Migration into or out of a population may be responsible for a marked change in allele frequencies, the proportion of members carrying a particular variant of a gene. It's one of the reasons why another term used for evolution is population genetics. And when I talk about how I'm studying evolution, I usually refer to it as population genetics because, like atheism, there's an unwarranted stigma attached to it. And then another one is the concept of genetic drift, which is variation in the relative frequency of different genotypes, which is the genes, in a small population owing to the chance disappearance of particular genes as individuals die or do not reproduce. Now add on top of that the fact of all the different transitional fossils we have found, how we're able to date them and everything, and you have a collection of information that supports the theory. The theory is always open to modifications. It's always open to improvements. That's why the fact that creatures have changed over time in response to their environment is different than the theory which is used to explain how those creatures have changed over time. But what's really frustrating about this is that in this discussion with this person, he doubled down on the fact that the definition of theory was like an assumption, and he even took a screenshot from dictionary.com. Fine, two can play at that game, motherfucker. Okay, so I got my dictionary right here. It's a couple of years old. I got this when I started college. But I found the definition for theory. First definition, abstract thought. That's kind of what he is implying it means. Second, the general principles of a subject. It's more in line with what I'm talking about. 3, a plausible or scientifically acceptable general principle offered to explain observed facts. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's exactly what the entire scientific community is talking about when they use the term theory. But ignorant little nerds like this don't know that because they don't know science. They know the garbage that their friends post from Answers in Genesis. They know the bastardization garbage that they post out, but they don't actually know what the opposing side, i.e. actual science, is claiming, which honestly makes them insanely disingenuous. So to wrap that all up, theory is field of study. It explains observed phenomenon. An example often used is the theory of gravity, because yeah, objects getting pulled back to Earth is an observed fact. The theory explains how it works. Just like in evolution, the fact that organisms change over time due to selective pressures is a fact, and we call it evolution. The theory of evolution explains that process, just like with the theory of gravity. Ponder for a second how Newton proposed gravitational laws. However, we found out that they weren't always applicable to things on like a quantum scale. That's where Einstein's theories of relativity came in handy, because they explain gravity on a quantum level. Because once again, a theory is open for revision and improvement as we find out more things about the universe, because we're always improving our understanding, whether we get better tools, whether our math or our understanding gets better. Things are always improving, and that's why a theory needs to be open to revisions. Same thing goes for cell theory. We know for a fact that cells exist, but the theory explains how they work. Once again, it's just a term thing that for some reason people get caught up on needlessly. Also, words are, I don't want to say changeable things because that makes them sound like they don't mean anything, but they're sometimes words are used differently in different fields of study. Think of like limestones. They're sedimentary rocks that are made up of like skeletal fragments of old dead ocean creatures, okay? They're not actually made of limes. Think of like the bar when it comes to legal matters. It's not an actual bar like where you go to drink, or like a chin-up bar or anything like that. It's because in different fields of study, sometimes you use words differently. We use words differently all the time, because like theory, people think it means like an assumption or a guess or a hypothesis. Like, I have a theory why so-and-so is being anal. Anal is another great example. Sometimes it has to do with butthole, sometimes it has to do with being all stuck up and pretentious and everything. So words can be used in different ways, and it doesn't undermine the intention of what the word is being used for. But lastly, it doesn't matter. You can say, oh, they use the term theory. You can say that all you want. It doesn't change the fact that species changing over time in response to their environment is a fact. It doesn't change the fact that we've been able to track changes in species over generation through the fossil record. It's a fact. It's a fact that we can match up genetic codes to prove that organisms are related in certain ways. These are facts. and you're welcome to try and argue the facts. But getting caught up on the terminology is bullshit, and it demonstrates, like all of this usually demonstrates, that folks in the more creationist side of the movement are desperate to undermine the validity of real science. Talk about gaps in the fossil record. Okay, talk about how peer-reviewed journals are a conspiracy, because everything's got to be a conspiracy. Get over yourself when it comes to the theory. The theory is an explanatory model. The event of organisms changing is a fact. Sorry. This is Super Ray 64 signing off. I will see you next time.